Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I am really excited to have my guest, Michael, here. Michael was a bit of a surprise guest, and now I'm super excited to get to know him. And I don't know if you guys have seen Michael on LinkedIn, but that's where I found you. So Michael, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get to know you and your story. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, Anna. I really appreciate it. You've had so many amazing, brilliant guests. I hope I can live up to that high bar that they've all set. So
I'm sure you will. This is you're in great company, and I can't wait. It's really fun for me to get to know people kind of, I don't want to say on the outskirts, but because you're not on the outskirts, but someone other than a nurse that's, doing the same thing I'm doing. It's fun to get to know the little nuances around this community. So I think that this episode will be probably one of the favorites. So, all right, Michael, where in the world are you coming from?
well, I'm in Vancouver, Washington, and that's just right across the river from Portland, Oregon. So yeah, in the Northwest.
Okay. We're on the same time zone. Yeah. Okay. And I typically ask the same questions, but we're all curious. So have you always been up in the Pacific Northwest, or?
No, I did grow up part in Southern California, part in rural Oregon, and then I moved to Austin and went to the University of Texas and hung out in Austin for a while, and then I gravitated back to the Northwest a little over 20 years ago.
Okay. All right. And what brought you to the University of Texas?
Well, I did my core stuff in community college, and then I wanted to go to the best school that I could get into and afford, and then also was in a nice, livable city. And so Austin and University of Texas kind of checked those boxes, and yeah, just went down there and went to school.
Okay. And what did you go to school for?
Anthropology and history.
Wow. All right. So, um, how did you decide to go down that route? I mean, it's not the most common route, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think I had too many kind of paths I wanted to chase. Yeah, I'm a lifelong learner, and so I did take a lot of science and pre-med stuff, and cultural anthropology was just so interesting, and then it was hard to stop taking courses and hard to stop learning. So yeah, had to pick a few things and
Right.
live with that. So yeah.
Right. Okay. And when you graduated with your degree, did you already have a job lined up, or what did that look like?
Well, I had a little bit of difficulty in my 20s getting some career traction. I did work in a few law firms as like a file clerk. I worked in publishing, and I worked in public libraries, and then University of Texas academic libraries, and waiting tables at night and doing a
Right.
little bit of all of that, and nothing was really totally sticking. Um, yeah, and I did work at an intellectual property law firm and they had a very robust library research services, and so that was kind of my first exposure to the research private library world.
So had you always been interested in research? Like when you were a kid, you were a book reader, I'm guessing, right?
No, actually, I wasn't. Yeah.
Oh, you were not.
No.
Wow. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
When did you discover the love? I mean, you said you're a lifelong learner, so, when did you discover the love of books, and research and How did that come about for you?
Yeah. If you had told my 18-year-old self, like, you're going to become a librarian, I would have probably said, "Oh my God, that's so lame. Like, what in the world happened to you?" Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, yeah. So actually, I joined the army right out of high school, was still
Uh-huh.
17. And it was
Uh-huh.
actually in the army that, I got my learning light turned on. And
Mm.
just, when we were not in the field or, in some kind of school or deployed or something, I would be reading textbooks and any book I could get my hands on.
Mm.
Um, and then, I started to think, I really want a formal education, and kind of, yeah, when my service was up, I just could not wait to go to college and
Mhm.
learn more. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Now, once you started to, enjoy reading, was it typically, and you said textbooks and research, was it always that, or did you find yourself going down at different genres? I know fiction for me, the reason I ask this is because I too love I was not a reader as a child. So it was as an adult that I became a book nerd. But for me, it was more of the personal development genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had difficulty, and I still do have difficulty reading fiction. I just would
Hmm.
rather dig into a personal development book or a business book. For you, is it just, textbook and research and information, or do you like all different kinds of information reading?
Yeah, it kind of depends on like a pressing need I might have in my life. So yeah, when I got into supporting lawyers and expert witnesses, I had these voices of self-doubt that were like, "Oh, I don't know anything about marketing and business, and I have no
Hmm.
business
Hmm.
acumen." And then I had to shake those out and just say, "Well, learn," and then I had to seek out all the amazing books and YouTubes and courses we have and go down that rabbit hole. So sometimes there's a pressing need for
Hmm.
my learning, but typically
Right.
it was either social sciences or medicine and science. Those were kind of the realms that I
Hmm.
really kept going back to.
Hmm. Hmm. And what was it that, okay, I'm trying to get your trajectory now. So now you've gone back to the Pacific Northwest. Did you find work in a library, and what kind of library was that?
Yeah, I when I gravitated back to the Northwest, I was lucky enough to get a job in a medical library. And then as soon as I got that job, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to finish my master's of library science at the same time and just go both feet in and just go down that. So, and then I never looked back. I've been a
Yeah,
medical librarian for 20 years
for
now
20
for
years.
healthcare system and a large medical group.
Okay, and now I have kind of a nerdy, just maybe personal. I don't know if anybody else is interested in this question, but you have a master's in library science, medical. What does that look like? What is that? What do you study for that? It's just because we don't. It's so foreign to me. So what is that like? What kind of things do you study in order to, develop the skills?
Mhm. Yeah, there's not a lot of medical librarians out there. It's one of those things. I always have to explain what I do. The
Yeah.
best guesses I ever get are like medical records. That's like the closest maybe I ever get.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, a librarian is a librarian is a librarian. So the graduate programs kind of all look the same, but we generally have some type of background in like medical and science. And then, we'll do training in just intensive literature searches and how to evaluate medical literature and things like that. Sometimes it can be kind of rigorous, sometimes it can be very light. And then it's just all about performing the research and, yeah, getting your hands dirty and rinse and repeat over and over again. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating because it's so foreign to my world. That's why it's so interesting. Okay, So you're working in a medical library. You've been a medical librarian for 20 years. How did you go down this medical legal side of things? And then I want to dig into actually some information besides for that. But I'm curious how you decided to go down this road, or how that presented itself to you.
Yeah, so I'd only been serving my healthcare system and the medical group and, meeting docs and pharmacists and nurses' information needs. And out of the blue, I had a expert witness agency contact me. I wasn't registered. I knew very little about malpractice. I knew nothing about like mass tort. Had them call me and say, hey, we have a law firm. They have a very medically complicated case of what we think is malpractice, and we also have a medical device failure situation. So this could develop into a mass tort. Would you jump on a call and meet them? And I thought there must be some kind of mistake. Like, what can I do for them? I didn't get it.
Right.
Once I, had a conversation, I understood how I could help them. And so, yeah, the case itself, they're experts, needed a lot of literature to connect those dots and back up their opinions. And also, the medical device company, their experts were like internationally known. They were just these heavy hitters that were writing chapters on textbooks. And so they were kind of like, okay, if we're going to undermine their position and weaken their positions, we've got to have some really good literature. Got to just have all the best ammunition. And so I had so much fun doing that deep dive and helping them out, and helping this person that their life was forever changed, the client. I just loved it, and then told the agency, if you can get me any more work, great.
Yeah.
And it just kind of trickled in a little bit from there.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. It kind of landed in your lap, right?
Yeah.
And then you were like, wait a minute, this is actually really kind of cool.
Yeah.
How long ago was that for you?
That was 2018. And and I had only been working with that agency and another, and I had been always telling myself, no one knows I exist and what I'm doing. I need to learn to promote myself, and I need to learn about marketing and generating content.
Yeah.
But it was scary for me.
Sure.
And back to those self-limiting voices we all have some version of.
Yeah.
And a year ago, I just formed my LLC and started making some more inroads and
Yeah.
myself.
Well, I think that honestly, as someone that can appreciate the marketing and just what I see out there, you're the needle in the haystack. You're like the one person. I just spoke to Susan Ferreira, a PA, and she kind of led her own path down this medical legal world as well, because there weren't very many PAs. And I would say the same for you. I'm guessing is that it's hard to find someone like you, and so you would be a hot commodity. So it's almost like, I better take on this. I better learn the marketing skills. I better, because you are this unique individual that has this skill that so many people need. Almost like Annie, the medical illustrator too. This is why I love these. That's why I say the outskirts, because it's like you are part of that community, but there's just one of you or very few of you, and she's kind of in the same boat you are. It's like, well, what my skill is very valuable in this world, and people need to know about me. And now she's so busy because she's just so needed. And I would imagine that's the case for you as well, because your skill set is something that every attorney needs. I mean, we as legal nurses do our own research, but we're not trained as researchers. We do our best and use the tools that our colleagues are using, but you have this unique skill that, for those that are really hard to, that information that's hard to find, you're definitely the one to go to. Top of mind, that's it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
Top of mind. Okay, so kind of diving down that road for the legal nurses listening to this, because typically that is most of the audience, either legal nurses that are looking to become, or nurses looking to become legal nurses, or legal nurses that are legal nurses. Um, for those people that are doing research for medical legal cases, what kind of advice would you give them as far as the reason I say this too? I know this is kind of a loaded question. I was on your LinkedIn page, and you give great information, and you show yourself, which is great. You get a piece of your personality as well, but you discuss, not all research is great research. So it's like we could all do a Google search on a case we're doing, and it looks like a great piece of literature, and we share this to our attorneys. Like, what advice would you give someone like me who is looking for research to back up, our opinion, or the information that we found in a case? Where would you start for those that are, we kind of get by?
Yeah, I think kind of the best places to start are learning some of the basic great search techniques, like using Boolean terms, and then also picking like the best tool, like the best database for the job. Like, okay, I'm going to look and see what systematic reviews and randomized controlled trials are out there. So I'll go to PubMed. But maybe if you use PubMed and you don't find anything, or you need like some conference abstracts or poster sessions, that's not going to be in PubMed. So then you need to go to like a specific version of, Ovid. If it's like a little more scientific and a little less medical, you might need to go to like Web of Science or Scopus database. And so the search techniques are mostly the same, although those databases respond to them a little bit differently. So they all have a little bit of nuances to them. And then it just comes down to like the repetitions, like, okay, I know these limitations in this database. And and then sometimes there's more advanced techniques like what we call like backward searching and forward searching. So if you find like one article and you're like, oh, this is the needle in the haystack, I haven't found anything with traditional search techniques. You can look at like, well, what articles are citing this one article, and then um, what articles are being cited by this article. So of course, skim the references of the one you have, and then also look and see who is citing that article. So it's backwards and forward. So just kind of the more robust search tools and techniques you can kind of put in your toolbox, the better that will make you. And then I think also some skills of just how to evaluate literature itself, and just breaking down, a study and looking for those limitations. And they're all going to have limitations, but just being aware of them. And then some are going to have really glaring deficiencies, and some are going to be pretty strong. So I think that's kind of another set of tools that are really valuable for experts.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. Now, as far as those that have those deficiencies, what would be like your typical red flag of a deficiency in you pull up some research and you think, okay, well, this sounds like it's, right up the right alley, but what would be something that would stand out, that would be a deficiency, or something that a red flag?
Yeah, maybe like small sample sizes. If it's like, okay, here's this, say an expert cites a study and it's like 60 people, and then they're trying to extrapolate that to like a larger patient population, that'd be a red flag. Biases, we all have them. Some medical literature is going to be very upfront about possible limitations. And then most are not. They're going to not even be upfront about that in their process. So just being aware of that. Of course, like any, commercial interests. I was looking at an article recently where the authors only used one site. The site happened to be the clinic they owned. But and in the disclosure section, it said we have nothing to disclose. And you needed to really read between the lines and see, oh no, they own the single site that is the comparator. The other comparator is outpatient hospital surgical services, which they were trying to say is inferior, of course, to us.
Right.
So sometimes there'll just be one sentence, like how they picked their patient population was on insurance, medical insurance. And so, their standalone clinic is not going to get folks with a lot of comorbidities and very complicated.
Right.
They're not going to be approved for that. But the, hospital outpatient clinic, they're going to get more of those challenging patients. And there just was one line like, oh yeah, we picked the patients for these two groups based on insurance. And then they just moved on. So sometimes it's very honest and they're upfront about limitations. Sometimes it's very thinly veiled and you've got to maybe look at what's not being said.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So it can be pretty challenging to break down the methods of medical literature.
Right. No. Yeah. It's like over my head, but that's why I don't want, I hate the term dumb it down, but really making it make sense in kind of, nursing English, and what the things to look for. And you say, sample sizes, and that may not be something that we typically are looking at. We're looking at, what is the result of this research versus, who are they using to develop the study. And I think that may be something that we probably overlook. I know I've probably overlooked that myself. So I think that in itself is one little tiny thing that we can be a little bit more careful on. And I think you had shared something like that on your LinkedIn. So for those of you who want to dig in more, make sure that you head over to Michael's LinkedIn page, because it's very valuable information. And like I said, I can nerd out and read that, and because it's something that I personally would like to be better at. And that's another reason why I jumped on. I would love to have you on this podcast, because it's something that I think it is overlooked. It's something that we do, but it's like an added feature. I don't know. I mean, I could just be speaking for myself, but I think it's something that I personally would like to get better at, providing better information and more, feeling comfortable about that information. And so, anything that you can help is helpful to the entire community. And then you as a resource as well, if I think, I'm just thinking out loud here, for those that are working with their attorney clients, that they're in the middle of a case and they've got this research, and the attorney client really needs more, that you're a perfect person to reach out to and say, I've got this person here. He's the one to really give you better information. Maybe we're like that first step, we're like the front door. And then once you get through the front door and they need more information, then that's when they seek you out. And I think that, I'm thinking of Annie again, the illustrator. She said, the best person to first touch those medical records is the legal nurse, so that it makes our job easier when it gets to us, and you're not paying us to go through the medical records and make it make sense to us, so that we can do, what we are, where our skill set is. So I think that collaboratively, I think that it works really well. I mean, you're nodding your head. I'm assuming that you feel the same way.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think I'm needed when the team is off in the weeds, and they have very specific kind of dialed in like key questions, and they're like, we really need to know, A and B. We're not finding it, or we're not confident that we found everything,
Mhm.
and then that's when I'll go and just use all my techniques and database
Yeah.
to find some of these things are so peculiar and rare and unlikely, and maybe the opposition's experts are saying, I've never seen that situation. I don't think there's any literature, or there is no literature. And so, that's when it's up to me to like find those
Yeah.
that what little samples there are, because it's something to show that that scenario is plausible and it has happened, and here's some data,
Right.
and so
Right. Right. No, that's very valuable. Very valuable. Okay. So for you, are you typically, when you're hired by an attorney, are you typically hired as a testifying expert? Again, this is just, I don't know the answer to this at all. That's why I'm asking. Are you typically as a testifying expert? Are you as a behind the scenes consultant? What does that look like for you?
yeah, I'm a behind the scenes consultant. Fortunately, no one ever deposes the librarian, or drags me into court. No, I'm yeah, the behind the scenes person. Yeah, last year I worked on a really large mass tort case involving adverse drug effects, and the courts kept kind of pushing back. Well, how do you diagnose this?
Mm-hmm.
And the experts were like, okay, well, we have some kind of peripheral experiences, and we can kind of vaguely, but I had to do an exhaustive search, and there was like 1,000 sources
Mm-hmm.
that then I curated down to about 150, gave that
Mm,
to the experts. Then they kind of parsed through that to
got it.
bubble out an opinion backing this up. So yeah, it kind of runs the range, but usually it's like there'll be some kind of pushback, or just the opposition's experts are just saying no, that's impossible, or they have no evidence to back it up,
Mm,
or you know, the client attorney or the expert witness I'm working with, they need to back up their opinion with the evidence, and connect
right.
those dots. And so it's also not efficient to have, especially a physician expert, spending time in a database looking.
Yeah.
They get paid so much more than me.
Sure, sure.
Skill set is they need to be seeing patients and rendering a true expert opinion and putting all of that together. They don't need to be messing about in a database, doing what maybe they're mediocre at. They get to
Right.
do what they're an expert at. I get to do what I'm an expert at. Everyone
Yeah.
wins. You know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Now, I appreciate you explaining that because, again, so foreign to me. And now I'm educated as far as, how you are utilized the best. Okay. Now, I should have asked you this earlier, and I know it's just like getting off topic, but do you have any? I know we talk about you live in the Pacific Northwest. Do you have any hobbies that you like to do? Because I like this podcast because we like to get to know people a little bit better. You've traveled to Texas to the Pacific Northwest. Do you have any hobbies? I know you have dogs.
mhm. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm an avid reader and hiker, and I like just embracing the outdoors, and
Yeah.
the daughter. So we go paddle boarding a lot when the weather's
Oh,
warm.
awesome. Yeah.
So it's a really nice way to connect with nature and disconnect from screens, electronics, and get her some exposure to nature, and it's
Yeah.
good for
It's
daughter time.
beautiful up there too.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, I appreciate you spending your time with us. I'm glad we kind of scratched the surface on this because I know that I'm going to stay connected with you, and I know that after this podcast, your inbox will probably be full of legal nurses reaching
Mhm.
out because every guest that happens, and I think with your profession and your skill set, I think that will definitely be the case. So could you share with everyone where they can find you? And of course, this will be in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So I have a website, Graham Med Legal Research. If you just Google that, you'll find me. Like you mentioned, I'm also on LinkedIn. I also have a Substack that I put out a weekly case review where it's not a case I've been paid to look at, but I'll pull something from Pacer and I'll try to tell the medical story about the patient's journey and what happened to them, and then also write about the legal kind of development of the case. And then I'll look at the medical literature, if it played a role in the case, if there was better literature out there, and just kind of try to package that all up into a teachable, learnable kind of case study. So I'm on Substack, and that is under Graham Med Legal Research also. And that's free for now. Maybe down the road, it might be a couple dollars a month or something. But it's really love digging into the cases and unraveling the mystery and trying to figure out what role better literature and better research could have played, and telling that story and maybe evaluating their literature they used. And
Oh, I love that. I'm glad that you shared that, because I'm sure that people will be very interested in reading that. That's very valuable to everyone. I think that you doing the research, you not only doing it for yourself, but sharing it is a gift you've given, the rest of us. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I appreciate you being here again, Michael, and sharing your story. And I look forward to staying connected with you out there in the social media world. And I look forward to everyone, cheering you on. I'm like your biggest fan now. So thank you so much.
I so much appreciate that. It's been an honor to have a conversation with you. I appreciate
it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at Anna Gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.